Okay, picture this. You've got this incredible network of highways inside your body, your arteries, and they're delivering life to every single part of you. But what happens when those highways get clogged up? When you get a traffic jam that can bring everything to a grinding halt? Today, we're diving into atherosclerosis. It's a silent, really common, and honestly a pretty misunderstood condition that causes those vital arteries to harden up. So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to nail down what atherosclerosis actually is. Then, we'll get into the causes and see how doctors even find it. After that, we'll look at all the treatments, from simple lifestyle changes all the way to surgery. And then, we'll finish with the most important part, how you can prevent it from happening in the first place. All right, let's start at square one. You hear this phrase all the time, hardening of the arteries. But what's really going on inside your body when that happens? So here's the deal. It's not just about getting older. It's a very specific process where this stuff called plaque starts building up on the inside walls of your arteries. Imagine a perfectly smooth, flexible pipe slowly getting caked with gunk on the inside. That pipe gets thicker, harder, and the space for blood to flow through gets narrower and narrower. And what exactly is this plaque? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a nasty, sticky cocktail of fatty stuff, cholesterol, old cell debris, calcium. It's a real mess. And this is the stuff that just builds up layer by layer, slowly closing off that vital highway for your blood. Now, here's the part that catches a lot of people by surprise. We tend to think of this as an old person's problem, right? But the groundwork for atherosclerosis can actually be laid way back in childhood. It's a super slow, sneaky process that can go on for decades before you'd ever feel a single symptom. Okay, so if this plaque buildup is the bad guy, what's helping it along? What are the things that speed up this whole dangerous process? The culprits here are probably not going to shock you. High cholesterol, for example, is like providing the raw building blocks for the plaque. High blood pressure, that acts like a constant sandblaster, damaging the smooth inner lining of the arteries, which creates perfect little spots for plaque to start sticking. And smoking, wow, that's a huge one. It damages the lining and makes your blood stickier. It's pretty wild how many of these things are tied directly to our daily choices. So, here's the million-dollar question. If this disease is so slow and so silent, how in the world do doctors find it? How do they spot the problem before it causes something catastrophic like a heart attack? Well, thankfully, modern medicine has a whole bunch of cool tools to basically look inside our arteries and find these hidden blockages. Let's take a peek at some of the main ways they do it. The approaches are pretty varied and clever. You've got the more invasive stuff like a cardiac catheterization, which is like sending a tiny camera with some dye and x-rays to create a live roadmap of your arteries. But then there are also these brilliant non-invasive methods, like using sound waves to literally listen to your blood flow, or even just comparing the blood pressure in your arm to the pressure in your ankle. A big difference can tell them there's a narrowing somewhere in between. Okay, so a blockage has been found. Now what? Well, doctors usually start with their most powerful yet least invasive tools first, and that means a combination of lifestyle changes and medication. So the initial game plan is this really powerful 1-2 punch. The first part is you, targeting all those risk factors you can actually control. Your diet, how much you move, quitting smoking, and at the same time, you use specific medicines to get the underlying problems like high cholesterol or high blood pressure under control. So let's quickly look at the medication toolkit. You've got things like antiplatelets, aspirin is a famous one, that make your blood cells less sticky so they're less likely to form a clot. Then you have the heavy-hitting cholesterol-lowering drugs, like statins, and of course a whole range of meds to get that blood pressure down. Each one has a specific job in fighting this battle. But what happens if the blockage is just too bad? What if lifestyle changes and meds aren't enough? Well, in those more serious cases, doctors have to get in there and physically clear the way. One of the most common procedures is called an angioplasty, and it's honestly an incredible piece of engineering. They guide a super thin tube with a tiny balloon on the end right to the blockage. Then they inflate the balloon and it just squishes all that plaque flat against the artery walls. And to make sure it doesn't close back up, they often leave a tiny metal mesh tube, called a stent, to prop the artery open. Now, for even bigger blockages, there's bypass surgery. The best way to think about this is like building a detour on a highway. Surgeons take a healthy blood vessel from somewhere else in your body, like your leg, and they literally build a new route for the blood to travel, completely bypassing that traffic jam. And this really gets to why all these treatments are so critical. Because when that plaque completely blocks an artery going to your heart or your brain, the result is a heart attack or a stroke. This isn't just a simple plumbing issue. We're talking about a life or death situation. And that brings us to the most important and I think the most empowering part of this whole conversation. How can we just avoid all of this in the first place? How do we take control of our own arterial health? It sounds so simple, but this is one of the most profound truths in all of medicine. The absolute best way to beat atherosclerosis is to never let it get a serious foothold in your body to begin with. Prevention is, by far, our most powerful weapon. And here's the playbook. This is the battle plan. And the good news is, it's not about some complex medical secret. It's about consistent, healthy choices. Eating a good diet, staying active, keeping a healthy weight, and for sure, not smoking. Every single one of these actions directly targets and disarms those risk factors we talked about at the very beginning. So, I want to leave you with this one question. Because stopping a silent disease like this doesn't start tomorrow with some huge, dramatic life overhaul. It starts right now, with one small, healthy choice. So, what's yours going to be?